Welcome into the Steelers Talk Live Show. I am your host, Jack Sperry. Thank you to all the real ones tuning in at the beginning of our live coverage here. Post-draft coverage here on Steelers Talk officially begins today. And I can't thank you guys enough for all the support that you gave to me and Coop and everybody that works here at Steelers Talk over the last several days as we covered the NFL Draft. Multiple videos, all of them getting over 10,000 views. And our grades video is now up to over 70,000 views. So thank you guys so much for all of your guys' support, man. And we got more great Steelers content coming your way here to kick off your week. First up, post-draft winners and losers. 5 Steelers, both on the winners and losers side, that are not draft picks, but their kind of future with the Pittsburgh Steelers was definitely affected by the events of the NFL Draft. Then we'll get into my Steelers UDFA grades. After doing all the research, going over some film with some of the guys that I hadn't watched filmed on yet, I've got some grades for you guys on all the UDFAs that the Steelers have signed, and then also my full scouting report on new Steelers quarterback Will Howard is coming up at the end of today's show, so make sure you guys stick around for that. And with that, Coop's already waving his towel. Let's bring on producer Coop. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Coop, how you doing today, man? It's a new week here on Steelers Talk, and we got some good stuff coming up.
Yes, sir. I am good. It was an interesting draft. The Steelers, I thought, made out pretty well in this draft. There were a couple of picks that I was like, oh, interesting. And there were a couple of picks I was like, wow, that was a really good pick. Overall, I probably graded about a B+ or an A-, I think is fair.
I think that's probably where I'm at, too. I think it's a good class, and I think that you're getting some good people and some good players, and we'll see how it all shakes out in the end. But Mel Kiper Jr. wasn't too happy with the fact that the Steelers didn't get Shedeur Sanders.
Well, Mel Kiper Jr. is an absolute hack and should never be on TV again.
Yeah, he is kind of a child. He was crying on live television
it was embarrassing
because his number one quarterback in the class didn't go until round 5. But yeah, man, it certainly seems obvious to me, Coop, that the Steelers expect Aaron Rodgers to sign, and the whispers are it's going to happen sometime this week. Yep. So if that happens, guys, we'll come right back here on live, and we're going to be breaking it all down. We're going to be raffling off a Steelers jersey. So grade Pittsburgh's 2025 NFL Draft down there in the comments section. I already see Sheldon in there giving it an A. Jay Knudsen is giving us a B+. Kenneth is giving us an A-. We've got Paul giving us a B+. Same thing with Gen05 G-Paw. We've got Tristan White, A-. We got Steve, A-. Brian's giving it an A or A-. Ali is giving it a B. It seems like people, maybe they didn't love the draft, like not A+ level good. But, it was certainly good enough this year where you're feeling pretty darn good, especially with the way that Omar utilized the first 3 picks, getting Derek Harmon, using your second round to get DK Metcalf, and then your third rounder getting Caleb Johnson, who's a perfect fit for your offense. If you guys want to get on the show here today, you guys can donate to the show. We greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. We are going to be giving away a Steelers jersey when Aaron Rodgers eventually signs here. It definitely looks like Rodgers is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler probably sometime this week. So whenever that live show ends up happening, we will be going live here, and we're going to be giving away probably an Aaron Rodgers Steelers jersey to one lucky person. We already have a bunch of names in there because, Coop, we've been collecting names for this raffle for over a month now. But if you guys want a chance to win that jersey, $20 super chat. And if you want double the raffle tickets, you can send in your $20 donation to Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal. This is where you guys can send your Venmos, Cash Apps, and PayPals. That information is also in the comments and description of today's show.
What if Aaron doesn't sign until the week before training camp?
That would be an absolute joke. I actually think the Steelers would move on.
I do
at that
too.
point.
I actually do too.
I think it's got to happen sometime before OTAs.
Which is?
May 27th, which is when the first O&D periods are going, and no pads, but at least you're taking somewhat live reps in practice at that point. Before we get started here, let's see who the real ones are in the chat. Spam those me's if you've liked the stream already. We got 132 people watching live, but only 24 likes.
What the hell?
We need to get that up to at least 40 likes before we get into our first segment here. So spam those me's for a shout out. We got Tristan White, Steelers dad. Justin Yankuski's here. Gen 05. We've got Tristan, DJ, KJ, Ali. We've got Jay. We've got Kenneth. We've got Agent Clappers. We've got Kenneth, Robert Derringer. We've got Christopher Carver. What's up, Christopher Carver? Good to see you, my man. We've got Robert Darlimple. Hope I'm saying that well. Is that how you say it, Coop? Dalrymple? Dalrymple. There we go. Kevin Reed is in here. Jacob Wizarek is here. Pizza is Goated is here. Chris Case, my lovely girlfriend Cassie Voth is here. Everyone say hi to Cassie in the chat. We've got a good crew of Steelers fans ready to talk some Steelers football today. First up on the show, post-draft winners and losers for the Pittsburgh Steelers. 10 Steelers players and coaches split into fives, 5 winners, 5 losers after the events of the NFL draft. Then we'll talk about some of the Steelers UDFAs that they have signed, and I'm going to give a letter grade to the players that they have signed as UDFAs. Then we'll get into Will Howard's scouting report here momentarily. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. And Cooper, are we ready to get into our first segment here?
We are in one moment.
Coop's got a little something he's got to take care of here. And by the way, Dino Tomlin, Coach Tomlin's son, is going to be attending a rookie minicamp. It won't be the Steelers. I think Coach T probably didn't want to make it an obvious Nepo kind of opportunity for his son, but he is going to an organization Tomlin used to coach for in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh, he was with the Bucs?
What's that?
Yeah, I didn't know he was with the Bucs.
Yeah, he was. He learned under Monty Kiffin. That's how he learned the Tampa 2. And then he learned, and then he coached under Jay Gruden. Then he went to Minnesota to be a defensive coordinator. Then he got the job as the Steelers head coach. So
I thought he was the Steelers DC with Cowher. No,
what's that?
I thought he was the Steelers DC with Cowher.
No, he wasn't.
Interesting.
So the Steelers did sign another UDFA.
Who'd we get?
Let me see here if I got the name. Steelers did sign another UDFA.
I see the one for the Raiders.
Blake Mangelson out of BYU. I don't know much about him, if I'm being honest with you. He had 37 total tackles, 2 sacks, and an interception and a fumble recovery with BYU last year.
You just want to mention him at the end?
Yeah. You want to just replace 3 open roster spots with his name and then maybe his school logo, BYU.
What's his name again?
It is Blake Mangelson. If you want me to spell Mangelson, I can.
Manglson.
Elson.
Yeah. Cool. Let me change that real quick.
Mangelson.
Got it.
From BYU. So I won't have a grade on there, just because I haven't done enough research on him. But we will mention him on today's show.
Position.
Defensive line. Some people list him as a defensive tackle. He came out as a defensive tackle, but he's 279, so he could be seen as a defensive end. So we'll get into our first segment here momentarily once Coop fixes that graphic. First up on tap today, post-draft winners and losers. I want to say hi to everybody in the chat. Tristan White, we got Yogi in here, Sheldon Bennett, Casey Cohen, Kraken is here, Pizza is Goated is here. A good crew of Steelers fans ready to talk some football today. So without further ado, let's get into our first segment today, some post-draft winners and losers for your Pittsburgh Steelers. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today, we're going to be breaking down 5 winners and 5 losers on the Steelers roster, and a couple of Steelers coaches actually included on today's list that I consider winners and losers after the events of the 2025 NFL Draft and the players that the Steelers took. Before we get into the content today, get us started down there in the comments section. But let me know, who is the biggest Steelers winner post-NFL draft here? Which player is probably the happiest on the Steelers roster based on the events of the NFL draft this year for the black and gold? All right, so first up here, guys, let's discuss the winners. I got 5 winners and 5 losers on today's show. So without further ado, let's get into our first winner here, which is somebody that's not even on the Steelers roster yet. And I say yet because it's going to happen. Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback. I think that, based on what we saw from the Steelers, there's a lot of people speculating, they might draft a quarterback. They might draft one really, really early, and they might draft one to start because they might be done pursuing Aaron Rodgers, but they did the exact opposite. They didn't draft a quarterback until round 6 with Will Howard, and they passed on Shadur Sanders not once, not twice, but 3 times, twice in the middle rounds when he was making his infamous fall in the NFL draft this year. And they even took a 4th edge rusher, kind of like a backup level player, before they addressed the quarterback position. So the Steelers' behavior in the NFL draft, and I always say, guys, don't listen to what a team tells you, listen to what they do. Actions speak louder than words. And the actions that the Pittsburgh Steelers made in the NFL draft said a lot about how they feel about the Rodgers situation. And it's very obvious to me right now, guys, that the Steelers feel extremely confident that Aaron Rodgers is going to sign with them soon. Jeremy Fowler from ESPN has reported that the team feels like, or that many people around the league believe that Rodgers has given the Steelers an assurance that he will sign with them eventually this offseason. And some of the words we heard from Art Rooney and, of course, head coach Mike Tomlin this weekend certainly seem to point in that direction. This is what Rooney had to say over the NFL draft weekend. He says, "We're still kind of getting the same signals we've been getting recently that he does want to come here. I do think we may get word soon, obviously, with things starting to crank up here with the offseason program, etc. If he's coming, we would like to get him here soon for some of that." Then Mike Tomlin said this on the Rich Eisen show during day 3 of the NFL draft. He said, "We've had good conversations. We feel good about our plan at the position. Certainly, it's yet to be revealed at this point, and I understand the angst not only in the media, but this community that supports us," talking about the Steelers fans there. "We're excited about what potentially awaits us there." Then Ian Rappaport from NFL Network said this on the Pat McAfee show today. "We are confident that Rodgers is coming," I believe is how they phrased it. They think Rodgers is coming. "I think Rodgers is going to be a member of the Steelers organization. Everyone in the world, I think, thinks that." Then Jerry Dulac said this today about how the situation is going in Pittsburgh. "The Steelers firmly believe that he will sign with them. It's less likely that he won't be their quarterback." So when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, guys, it certainly seems like he's going to sign with the Steelers. And if I'm Rodgers and I saw what the Steelers just did in their draft and just did in free agency and the trade for DK Metcalf, I like what the Pittsburgh Steelers did this offseason. And obviously with all the other quarterback opportunities off the table, the Steelers one right now is definitely the best case scenario for him in terms of trying to have success and to be a starting quarterback for an NFL team. You can take a look at what he has to work with here if he signs on with the Pittsburgh Steelers for 2025. And I think that this is very workable. You got a lot of early round offensive line talent that the Steelers are hoping is going to take a big step forward next year to protect Aaron Rodgers. And then you got guys like DK Metcalf, George Pickens. You got a really good running back duo in Caleb Johnson and Jalen Warren to take some of the load off of Aaron Rodgers and so that he doesn't have to pass the ball as much as he did with the New York Jets that had no run game last year. And then he's got a really good receiving tight end as well in Pat Freiermuth that he's reportedly already been in contact with throughout the free agency process. Plus, he's already worked out with guys like DK Metcalf at UCLA this offseason. So I think that this is a really good opportunity for Rodgers, and especially given the fact that the Steelers didn't bring in and didn't draft an early round quarterback, I think that makes it even more sweeter for Aaron Rodgers and even more tantalizing for him to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will Aaron Rodgers make a decision this week? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. Personally, I think he's going to sign sometime this week, but what do you guys think? It's going to be the pinned comment on today's show, so YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by giving me a yes or a no down there in the comments. Another post-draft winner here for the Pittsburgh Steelers is George Pickens, the wide receiver. And, even during draft weekend, we were getting whispers that the Steelers were willing to listen to offers for a trade for George Pickens. And not only did they not do that, not only is Pickens still on the roster after draft weekend, something that, by the way, I predicted, even though, a lot of people were saying the Steelers were trying to trade him, they didn't draft a wide receiver either. So he's definitely locked in as this team's number 2 wide receiver alongside DK Metcalf, and I am so excited to see what this duo is going to do this year. The Crash Out Brothers, the Twin Towers, whatever you guys want to say. These two guys are great downfield threats, and they're really good after the catch as well. And, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, and I got these two big targets for me to throw my inside fades to throw my go balls to throw those digs to, I am really, really excited about those two wide receivers. Now, let's hope that contract talks with George Pickens don't spiral this offseason. I still think it's more than possible that George goes to the organization and says, listen, I'm on my last year. If you want me to play for you this year, you have to pay me $30 million per season. And there's just no way in hell the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be doing that. They might do it if he has a really special season this year and they can't afford to, separate DK Metcalf and George Pickens. But I do think that this is a potential situation that could get a little bit ugly down the road. But right now, it certainly seems like he's locked in to be this team's number 2 receiver. Another wide receiver that I thought was a post-draft winner was Roman Wilson. That's another guy that benefits from the Steelers not drafting a wide receiver. Now, they did bring in a couple of UDFAs at the position, but those are UDFAs, right? They're not really going to be true contenders, at least not, heading into the offseason program. We'll have to see what Roman can do, but Roman's going to have an opportunity to prove himself this offseason. And I think that the fact that they didn't draft a wide receiver on day 3 of the NFL draft shows that they have hope and confidence in Roman moving forward. They spent the 3rd-round draft pick on him last year. They obviously still think he's very talented. And from a skill set perspective, my pro comp for Roman Wilson was actually Randall Cobb, and that skill set really worked well with a guy like Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. So I think that Roman Wilson could really work, especially if Aaron Rodgers is here as this team's quarterback. And hopefully, after spending a season dealing with injuries and apparently not picking up the offense in the correct way, hopefully now that he's had a full offseason to work with his guys and get ready for his pretty much pseudo rookie season, hopefully he can come out and have a great first full season in the NFL. Then we get to Isaac Seumalo, the guard, and the reason why I have him as a winner is because I think he has a higher chance of remaining with the Pittsburgh Steelers past this season. Last year, James Daniels was was on a contract year, and they brought in Mason McCormick, a mid-round draft pick, to eventually replace him. I thought there was a chance that the Steelers could bring in an offensive lineman this year in the draft to potentially do the same with Seumalo, but they didn't do that. They did bring in an offensive lineman from Minnesota Duluth, Aiden Williams out of Minnesota Duluth as a UDFA, but I'm not sure if the plan is necessarily for him to start in 2026. I think that because they didn't really get an heir apparent to that position, I do think the chances are greater that Seumalo gets locked up long-term to be the starting left guard of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then the final winner here is Arthur Smith, who, obviously is the offensive coordinator. And I think last year he didn't really get to play the style of offense he wanted to play. Najee Harris wasn't really built to be an outside zone type of rusher. He didn't really have the adequate vision. And then obviously Russell Wilson has to run kind of his style of offense in order to be successful. And, it just wasn't really Arthur Smith's thing. But this year, you got a guy like Aaron Rodgers probably coming in who is very accustomed to playing under center, play action style. In fact, he had some of his most successful years playing under Matt LaFleur there in Green Bay. And then you got a guy in Caleb Johnson who's a similar size to Najee Harris, but he's got way better vision and I think even more explosive downfield speed. Last year, Next Gen Stats clocked him at over 22 miles per hour multiple times on big-time runs with the Iowa Hawkeyes. So I think he's a perfect fit for Arthur Smith's run scheme. At 220 pounds, he can be an absolute monster for the Pittsburgh Steelers run game this year, and I think Rodgers is a better fit for Art's offense. And like I said, I don't think last year Art got to run the style of offense that he usually wants to run. I thought last year was a lot more shotgun, a lot less outside zone than what he usually likes to run. But the way that the Steelers have kind of built the offense this year in the offseason, I think he's going to be able to put his stamp on the team and on the offense and on the unit. So hopefully now that because he's going to be going to more of the stuff that he's more comfortable running, hopefully that's going to lead to more success for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into the 2025 season on the offensive side of the ball. So coming up here on Steelers Talk, my biggest post-draft losers. I'm going to let you guys know the players that I think, probably are the least happy with the events of the 2025 NFL Draft. From the Steelers' perspective. But before we get into that list, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Fanatics, where if you guys are planning on getting a DK Metcalf jersey in your collection, you guys can actually help out the channel while also getting yourself a DK Metcalf jersey today when you go to chatsports.com/DK. If you use that link and you make a purchase, Fanatics sends us here at Steelers Talk part of the proceeds to help us improve our graphics, help us improve our equipment. all the stuff that makes this operation go. We really do appreciate all of your guys' support. So, hey, if you were planning on getting a number 4 DK Metcalf jersey anyway, help out the channel in the process. Go to chatsports.com/DK. Really do appreciate it. All right, so let's get to the losers here. First one up, Beanie Bishop Jr., slot cornerback last year, UDFA, that earned a roster spot and was a week 1 starter for this football team. Started many games, had a lot of big plays, a lot of interceptions for this football team last year. And, the reality is Pittsburgh brought in a lot of competition for him at the slot cornerback position this year. They brought in guys like Dante Kent from Central Michigan. They brought in Sebastian Castro, a UDFA out of Iowa that a lot of people expected to get drafted. Now, I do think, and of course, they brought in Brandon Eccles, who can play in the slot as well. But I think it is Beanie's job to lose. He has the most experience as a starter in this system. Obviously, all 3 other kind of candidates at this position are new to the team. So it's going to be Beanie's name at the top of the depth chart to start the 2025 offseason program. But there's going to be heavy competition. I did think last year Beanie's size affected his ability to effectively play in coverage. He did have some very nice instinctual plays and had a nose for the football, which gives him a leg up in this competition. But watch out for Dante Kent and Sebastian Castro. Those 2 guys are really good players in the slot, and Beanie's going to have to completely earn that starting position this offseason if he wants to be the week 1 starter for the second year in a row. Then we get to Montravius Adams, who was released by the Pittsburgh Steelers today. Steelers obviously signed drafted Derek Carman in round 1, then Y.A. Black in round 5, and Y.A. Black is going to be the new nose tackle, so they didn't really, I'm pretty sure they just felt like, hey, it's not really worth keeping Adams on this roster anymore. We want to give him another opportunity where he's got a better opportunity to make a team, and the Steelers also saved $2.25 million by cutting him. So the thing that I love about Montravius, man, is that he always brought the right attitude to the team. Fantastic effort player. I really appreciated everything that he did for this organization. I wish him the best of luck elsewhere. Then we get to Ryan Watts, who, not necessarily the events of the NFL draft led to the Steelers releasing him, but he and the team kind of came to a mutual understanding that Watts, the injury stuff was just not going to be feasible for him to play NFL football. So that's unfortunately for a guy like Ryan Watts. I was excited about him when the Steelers drafted him with a 6th-round pick last year. It just didn't work out, unfortunately. And we once again wish him the best of luck in his future endeavors outside of the game of football. Mike Sullivan is somebody else that the team released or took off his coach bio on their website, so it appears the team has let him go. And he's helped be quarterbacks coach, offensive assistant, whatever he wanted to call his title. The team seems to have parted ways with him. So he is certainly a post-draft loser. Then you got Mel Kiper Jr. I mean, what an absolute joke Mel Kiper Jr. is, man. Just crying on national television that his golden boy, Shadur Sanders, didn't get drafted, and then penalizing the Steelers when they didn't draft him in his final draft grades. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Listen, I'm not going to go into details as to everything that Mel Kiper said about the Steelers because we already did a video on that. So if you want to check out my thoughts on Mel Kiper Jr. and his clown take on the Pittsburgh Steelers and their final draft grade this year, you can check out the video we put out earlier today on Steelers Talk. That'll be it for today's show, guys. But if you made it to the end, don't forget, get down there in the comments section, type those real ones if you made it to the end of the show so that you can identify yourselves and we know you made it to the end. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. I got some super chats rolling in. Just one super chat or a couple? Or Justin Yankuski comes in with a 5, says if Rodgers doesn't sign, would he be the greatest supervillain of all time? I mean,
yes.
Listen, man, I was telling Coop about this earlier. If he doesn't sign with the Steelers, I'll hate him. I'll hate him forever. I'll never forgive him. If he makes the Steelers wait this long, even past the draft, and he says I'm not coming, I'm gonna hate him forever. Now, if he signs here, I'm all in on him. All right, you guys know if you've been watching the channel, I'm excited to watch Aaron Rodgers play with this team. I think it's a well-constructed team by GM Omar Khan. And if the offensive line can develop, and I understand that's a big if, but if the offensive line develops, they certainly have the talent to do it. I think this team could be dangerous with Aaron Rodgers as their starting quarterback.
I won't rule anything out with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that's fair.
I would not be absolutely shocked if he didn't play.
Yeah, I wouldn't be absolutely shocked either. I would hate him forever, but it certainly seems like the Steelers feel like he wants to play and he wants to play for them. So we'll see what happens here. It might be a couple of days because maybe Rodgers doesn't want to steal the thunder away We have a signing here, Coop.
Who do we get?
The Steelers are signing veteran wide receiver Robert Woods
Wow.
to a 1-year, $2 million deal. Locker room presence for the QB for the wide receiver room. So I'd say let's scrap UDFA grades and let's do a cut on this.
Okay, yeah, we can do that.
So whatever graphics you want to put together on that, we can do that. But we do have some breaking news here, guys. We're going to need copy and thumbnail help as well. Probably highlight cut this. So we do.
Cut?
What's up?
You think it's a highlight cut?
I do. It's a big name receiver. He's older and he's kind of cooked, but it's a big name.
Okay.
So we're going to do a video here on Robert Woods in just a moment, guys. Robert Woods coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers on a 1-year, $2 million deal. I'm gonna change the pin poll here. We're gonna do a new pin poll, so go vote. Grade the signing of Robert Woods. Bobby Trees coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
It screams Van Jefferson to me.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby Trees is a Steeler. Yeah, welcome, baby. We got Jeremy Chuggs in here.
Did you hear the funny news?
What's that?
What's
the funny news?
Deontay Johnson visiting the Browns.
No! Oh my gosh!
Welcome to the club, Petey.
Have fun with him, man. Have fun with him. Oh my goodness. He's great locker room guy. Great locker room guy. That's what I'll say.
The only thing that he's great at, great hands.
Yeah, really good hands, and I think he's a pretty good run blocker. And
He's not going to wow you with anything.
yeah, and listen. So, like, Robert Woods, to me, this is a culture signing, guys. This is to try and, be a mentor for George Pickens and Roman Wilson. And, they obviously didn't get a wide receiver in the NFL draft. So this is kind of George Pickens' insurance a little bit in case George, decides to make a mess of things during the offseason here with his contract situation. Big-time veteran presence, good leader in the locker room. Arthur Smith is going to love him because he's a good run blocker. Obviously, a bigger body type of receiver. Now, he doesn't get open very much, and he's kind of gonna be similar to like Van Jefferson, Allen Robinson, another former Rams wide receiver here, by the way. But I don't expect Woods to blow anybody away. 6 foot, 193 pounds, decent size. Brings a good run blocking mentality to the table. But to me, this is a veteran presence that you're injecting in there to kind of hope that he makes a good impression on George Pickens and on Roman Wilson as they look to, develop even further in their NFL careers. Going to look up Robert Woods' numbers here on PFF while we wait for Coop to put together some graphics for us here. So right now we've got a C grade. I think that C is about fine. It's not going to blow you away. That's the thing. It's like I would even maybe, for what it is, backup level player with a lot of playing experience. I don't necessarily hate it. I will say that. So his PFF grades the last several seasons. Last year had a 58.8 with Houston, 60.7 the year before that with Houston, 68.0, not bad with Tennessee. And then before that, it was all 70s and 80s with his time with the Los Angeles Rams. So obviously declining player, but somebody that is a pro's pro. He's going to block his butt off for this team. He's going to be kind of the Van Jefferson and Allen Robinson type, which I know is not going to be very savory to a lot of people watching this show right now. But listen, there's a place for players like that. There really is. It's not as a starter. All right, I think that the top 3 receivers on this team are still easily DK Metcalf, George Pickens, Calvin Austin III, and then Roman Wilson even would be number 4 for me. And Robert Woods is slotting in as your number 5 wide receiver, and you've got Skoranek in there in the mix as well as a blocking wide receiver. Like there's a lot worse, depth wide receivers that you could add. You're getting him for nothing. 1 year, $2 million, for somebody that's going to be a good mentor to a couple of young receivers that you have on your roster. I don't mind this signing whatsoever. So for what it is, I'll give it, B-, C+. it's definitely not a bad signing, in my opinion. It's a depth signing. It's going to be relatively inconsequential. I don't think he's going to be brought in as a starter over George Pickens or over Roman Wilson or over Calvin Austin III. He's pretty much slotting in as your number 5 wide receiver, but every time, man, it's just that's where we're at. Didn't get a wide receiver in the draft, so they're pretty much just getting one here. And by the way, I think the Steelers have probably had him on their radar for a while. They just didn't want to sign him before because today was actually the deadline for free agents to affect the comp pick formula. So this signing does not affect the comp picks that the Steelers are going to get next year. So that is probably why the Steelers waited until today to make this signing. And let us know what you guys think down there in the comments section. We got over 330 people watching live here. Just so you guys know, Robert Woods has signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers, wide receiver, formerly with the Buffalo Bills, Los Angeles Rams, Tennessee Titans, and Houston Texans. Is going to be, yeah, we're doing a cut. yeah. Whoever's making the thumbnail should put like trees in the background. It should be like a forest background. It should be a forest background. Like pine trees. Let's make it pine tree background here. So Coop's currently putting some graphics together for us here. We're gonna do a breaking news cut on this whenever we have everything ready. Steelers' dad says, "Is he uber athletic?" No, at this point he's not. He's somebody that's going to be more of a run blocking type. He's going to be kind of physically unremarkable, honestly, at this point in his career. Doesn't create a lot of separation. He's got really reliable hands. That's the one thing that I'll give him credit for, is that he's going to have good hands, and he's going to be a pro's pro. He's going to block his butt off. He's going to block his butt off for the in the run game. So, as a wide receiver 5, I like this a lot more than the Van Jefferson signing as a starting number 2 receiver, or as Allen Robinson as a number 3 starting slot receiver. Like, I like this a lot more than in the role he's going to be playing compared to what Allen Robinson and Van Jefferson were doing for this team over the last few seasons. So honestly, I like it. Veteran player that's going to come in and do some good things and, contribute something to the locker room and to the wide receiver room. I would say don't get your hopes up too high for what he's going to do for the team, but it is a big name player. That's a 12-year veteran. And he's been to a Super Bowl as a starting wide receiver for the Los Angeles Rams. Had a pretty darn good stretch there with the Rams, where he went to back-to-back. He had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, but obviously he's way past that point in his career, where now he's more of just a veteran kind of mentor type of player. Good run blocker, solid hands, that type of guy. Last year had 587 yards. All right, so 14.7 yards per catch, 3 touchdowns. Not bad. 14 starts. Oh, never mind. That was his rookie season. I'm an idiot. Just 203 yards last year for the Houston Texans and no touchdowns. Over the last 3 seasons, he only has 3 touchdowns. Had 2 in 2022 with Tennessee, 1 with Houston in 2023, and 0 last year in 2024. Hasn't had a season of over 600 yards since 2020. With the Los Angeles Rams, but he did have 2 plus 1,100 yard seasons with the Rams from 2018 to 2019. So this is somebody that obviously he's going to come in and he's going to provide depth to this wide receiver room. But once again, guys, I would say don't expect big things out of Robert Woods. I would expect maybe 200 yards out of him this year. He's going to be a rotational piece, depth piece. And that's kind of what we're expecting from Robert Woods here. So let's just go extra goal for this Coop for sponsor, because that's what we were going to do UDFA grades with. So extra goal, just two sub reads, beginning and end. So you guys are getting a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look here, guys, as we're getting breaking news and we're getting it ready for you guys. So, Coop, are we ready to get rolling here? All right, we're ready to go, so let's get into it. Bobby Trees coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's talk about it right now. We have some breaking news for you here on Steelers Talk as the Steelers are signing wide receiver Robert Woods to a one-year, $2 million deal here in 2025 to fill out their coffers at the wide receiver position. Today I'm going to be breaking down Robert Woods' profile, what you guys can expect from Bobby Trees in a Steelers uniform here in 2025. But before we get into it today, I'll make sure you guys click that subscribe button because this is not the last free agency signing we are expecting from the Steelers this week. I think you guys all know the other veteran player that the Steelers may be bringing in this week, cough, cough, Aaron Rodgers. If that happens, we're going to be going live on this channel. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button right now to not miss a thing when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Steelers do bring in Robert Woods to fill out some depth in their wide receiver room here. They're paying him a one-year, $2 million contract to kind of be a veteran presence in this wide receiver room that does still have some very young wide receivers that are still developing. You can take a look here at what Robert has done over the last several seasons. He spent the last 2 years with the Houston Texans. He spent 2022 with the Tennessee Titans, and then 2021 was his last season with the Los Angeles Rams. But as you guys can see, it has been decreasing. Last year, no touchdowns. He did play in 15 games for the Houston Texans, but just over 200 yards on 20 catches. So he's certainly a diminished product. And, I would say right now, don't expect Bobby Trees to be a starter for this team. I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, this is another Van Jefferson signing, or, oh, this is going to be another Allen Robinson signing. And I get the connection there, former LA Ram, all these different things, kind of Cook, not a very good separator at this point in his career, but I actually like this signing a lot more than the Allen Robinson trade and the Van Jefferson signing because you're not expecting Woods to be a starter for you. They traded for Allen Robinson III to be a starting slot wide receiver for them and was a parking cone out there, couldn't separate. Then you got Van Jefferson last year, and he ended up being your number 2 receiver in terms of total snaps during the 2024 campaign, and he wasn't very good. So you still have your wide receiver depth chart here, guys, where you have DK Metcalf, George Pickens, and Calvin Austin III are clearly, in my opinion, your top 3 receivers. And then you're hoping Roman Wilson finds himself a role sometime this year. He's going to have an opportunity to prove himself this year. So those are your top 4 guys. Robert Woods is going to kind of go in there as a 5th receiver. That's going to be a great culture guy for guys like George Pickens and Roman Wilson that are still very young, especially for a guy like Pickens that the Steelers are hoping is going to mature a little bit. Hopefully Bobby Trees can be a really good mentor for him as we head into the 2025 season. You still have guys like Ben Skoranek in here, who's a really good blocker as well. So honestly, I kind of like where this wide receiver room is sitting, especially because Arthur Smith loves to use these 2 tight end sets. You don't necessarily need to have a super deep wide receiver room when you're running this style of offense. You really do need to have your 1, 2, and 3 spots really solidified, and I really like where the Steelers are at this point in time. So it's red pen time. Let me know down there in the comments section for today's pin question. Grade the signing of Robert Woods here, A, B, C, D, or F. It's a one-year, $2 million deal for your number 5 wide receiver. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Again, for today's pin question, YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just one moment. And when that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pin question. So like I said, guys, I don't expect Robert Woods to be a big-time impact. I do think that this gives the Steelers a little bit of insurance in case George Pickens decides to kind of make a mess of things during the offseason this year, where he definitely has some power here to be like, listen, Steelers, you have to pay me $30 million per season on my next deal, or I'm not playing this year. And, I just know for a fact the Steelers are not comfortable giving Pickens that level of money, at least not right now. They might be willing to do it, and that's a big maybe at the end of this next season if he matures, if his work habits are a little bit better. He doesn't have some of the fighting and effort issues that we've seen on his film over the last several seasons, and he's spectacular from a stat sheet perspective alongside DK Metcalf. But, I really hope that the Pickens contract talks don't spiral, all right? I feel like that's certainly something that could happen because he certainly feels like he's one of the best receivers in the game. He may feel like he deserves a new contract extension this offseason, and he might have saw DK Metcalf get paid and say, hey, I've been the guy that's been here over the last several years as your number one receiver. Where's my money? And if that happens, I do think that the Steelers are not going to budge. They're going to say, you can play on your current contract this year, or you cannot play. And, bringing in a guy like Bobby Trees is going to give you a little bit more insurance on that. Certainly if you don't have George Pickens, that's a big blow to your offense. But right now, this is kind of what the offense is expected to look like. And if George Pickens is on the field for the Pittsburgh Steelers, everything looks really good. And then you add Calvin Austin III and Roman Wilson to that mix, especially if Roman takes a big step forward here, because we really didn't see him in his rookie season. If Roman turns out to be something pretty nice, this offense is looking like it could be pretty darn good, especially if this offensive line that's very young and talented can reach their potential as well. So, Bobby Trees is going to be coming in here, and the Steelers are hoping that he's going to be a really good veteran presence that's going to take guys like George Pickens and Roman Wilson that are still learning how to be professionals, that are still learning, how to be, still learning the ropes of NFL life. And this is somebody that's been heralded for his leadership, for, the effort that he brings onto the field in terms of a player. He's not much of a separator anymore. He's not like a crazy athlete, and honestly, he never really was, but he is somebody that fits Arthur Smith's offense like a glove because he's a high-effort player that brings some good size and some good run blocking to the table as a wide receiver. And then, he's got kind of his calling card is his great hands. He's got really reliable hands, and if it comes to it here where he has to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's somewhat trustworthy in that regard. So I do think he's slotting in as this team's projected 5th wide receiver, so you don't necessarily have to worry about him, disappointing the way that Van Jefferson did last year or Allen Robinson did the year before that. And, with this signing now, there is now one roster spot available. So after the team released Montravius Adams and after they released Ryan Watts, they brought in another UDFA defensive tackle out of BYU, and then they signed Bobby Trees. So there's still one roster spot available, and I think we all know who that's for. It's probably going to be Aaron Rodgers, all right? And I think that Rodgers will appreciate having another kind of veteran wide receiver in his wide receiver room, somebody that's been there and done that, somebody that's been to a Super Bowl. And, it certainly seems like Robert won't be the only veteran player to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. There's been a ton of rumors surrounding Aaron Rodgers signing with the Steelers this week, and it certainly seems like, especially with the way the Steelers handled their NFL draft this year, that Rodgers will be coming here to be the next starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So look out for Aaron Rodgers to sign with the Steelers sometime later this week. And like I said at the beginning of today's show, we will be going live if A-Rod becomes a Steeler. So give me an over-under here. 1.5 touchdowns for Woods this year. I'm expecting him to be a depth wide receiver, to get sometimes in the rotation, but to be more injury and George Pickens insurance this season. For a 1-year, $2 million contract, I think that's more than worth it, guys. Give me an O for over or type U for under. For me, I'm actually going to go with the over. Woods has been a really good red zone threat throughout his career, and I think that, injuries happen, all this different stuff, and, I think that he's the type of guy that's going to put in the hours with Aaron Rodgers this offseason to make sure that their connection is on point. I think he'll have an opportunity to get on the field, especially in these kinds of hand-catch types of moments in the red zone, and I think he'll have at least 2 touchdowns for the Steelers this year. That'll be it for today's show, guys. Just some kind of final thoughts here on the entire Bobby Trees signing. Just a quick recap that it's a 1-year, $2 million contract. He's not much of a separator, and, on paper, it's a very similar signing to guys like Van Jefferson and Allen Robinson. But, the difference is the role that the Steelers are going to be asking Bobby Trees to play versus the role they asked Allen and Van to play in the last 2 seasons. They're expecting Woods to be a depth piece this year, whereas they expected Jefferson and Robinson to be big-time contributors. So hopefully Woods is going to make a good impact on guys like George Pickens and Roman Wilson, and hopefully those 2 guys continue to reach new heights in their Steelers careers. But that'll be it for today's show, guys. Again, click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because this is not the last signing that we are expecting this week. And whenever that news breaks on the Aaron Rodgers saga, we're going to be right here giving you guys extensive coverage live on this channel. And also, we'll be giving away a Steelers Aaron Rodgers jersey. So click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, so big thank you to everybody out in the bullpen getting everything ready. Shout out to Coop for putting together some graphics for us there. Coop, we haven't heard from you because you've been too busy putting shit together here. What's your thoughts on the Bobby Trees signing?
I think this is a very solid signing for the Steelers. Like you said, he's a veteran presence that I certainly think this locker room could use with alongside DK Metcalf and George Pickens. You're not going to expect a ton of production from him, but I think if he comes in there and is able to just be a part of the rotation, if he can play 15-ish snaps a game, give or take a few, I think that's kind of all you're asking for him. For $2 million, doesn't seem like it's much of anything, a big deal for me. They saved $2.25 million by cutting Montravius Adams.
And they pretty much replaced that with Bobby Trees here. I don't hate it whatsoever. 0 touchdowns last year in Houston. Just 1 touchdown in Houston the year before that. So, if you're expecting Bobby Trees to be LA Bobby Trees, I think that you're getting way ahead of yourself here. But honestly, I think that Woods has been kind of a lower level, kind of fringe starter, good backup level wide receiver for enough time now where, people are not going to be expecting big things out of Bobby moving into 2025. But I think that the main way that he contributes and the main way that he is a value to this team, Coop, is what he brings to the locker room and what he brings as a mentor to young receivers like George Pickens and Roman Wilson, where hopefully a consummate pro like this is going to instill some professionalism in that group.
He definitely is very well respected around the league as well. So that was certainly a factor in the Steelers. It feels like they wanted him for a while as well, right?
Yeah, and I probably should have said this during the video, but the reason why it took so long for them to get this deal done is because if they would have signed him before, it would have affected the comp pick formula because he was a free agent. He wasn't released by Houston. So the reason why they waited so long is because they didn't want Bobby Trees to affect how many comp picks they could get next year, which right now I think they're slated to get 4.
Yep.
And that is a lot, and you don't want to risk any of those. Because next year you might have to trade up for a starting quarterback in the first round or something like that. You want to have all those at your disposal that you can.
I hope not.
And Woods, they've probably been in communication with Woods for a little while now, and they're like, we're going to wait to sign you officially until this date so that we don't, risk losing a comp pick.
Could they not have done it before we got on live?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it ended at what? I think the deadline was, 4 p.m. Eastern, so it would have been nice if we got it at 3, right at 3, but it certainly seems like the Steelers had some moves that they had in mind, and they've made a couple moves today as well, signing a UDFA. What was his name again out of BYU? Mengelson, that's what it was, yeah.
Sounds right. Mengelson?
Yeah, so the Steelers making 2 signings here, which once again puts them at 89 in terms of the players on their roster. And I think we all know who number 90 is slated for here. It's going to be a quarterback, right? It's going to be either Aaron Rodgers, who is expected to sign sometime this week, or Kirk Cousins if things start to spiral downwards in the Rodgers saga.
Yeah, Aaron, if you're watching this, just please don't sign on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. That's all I ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron.
Do you think he's watching?
Who?
Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Aaron, if you're watching, please sign. Maybe not tonight because you're going to the Stars playoff game tonight. So maybe not tonight. Maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow would be great.
Tomorrow morning would be great because we could just come into work, do the live show, and just have that be our day. But we're kind of on Aaron Rodgers' schedule here. So whenever the news comes, we'll be here and we'll be talking about it, and it's going to be a fun day for sure.
We'll do Fanatics on this.
Yeah, Fanatics on this one. All right, so we still got one more cut here, guys. Don't forget to vote on the Bobby Trees signing down there in the comment section, A, B, C, D, or F. 38% give it a C, 36% give it a B. So it seems like, kind of that B, C range, which is, I think, what is around.
That's what it is.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
For what this is, for sure. Okay, let's get into our final segment today. If you are excited about Will Howard, 6th-round pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers, quarterback out of Ohio State, I've got a treat for you guys today. My in-depth scouting report on the newest Steelers quarterback is coming at you right now. Today on Steelers Talk, I'm going to be sharing my in-depth scouting report on new Steelers quarterback out of Ohio State, Will Howard. Before we get into it today, letting you guys know the pros, the cons, and what I think Will Howard could become as a quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers today. Let me know, true or false, Will Howard is Pittsburgh's Week 1 starter sometime in the next 4 seasons. So during his rookie contract, Does Howard become the franchise quarterback of this team during his rookie contract? Type T if you think true, or type F if you think false. Let me know how you guys are feeling about the newest Steelers quarterback down there in the comments section. So let's start with the things that I like about Will Howard's profile here, because there's certainly a lot of fun tools that he brings to the table that I think, give him a pretty decent ceiling here in terms of where he got him in the 6th round. So first of all, he's got a prototypical size, all right, 6'4", 236 pounds. And it's because of this, this prototypical size that some people on social media are comparing him to guys like Josh Allen and Big Ben Roethlisberger, is because, they're the same size, so they're the same player. And, as we'll talk about today, that's not exactly the case when it comes to Will Howard, but he does have very nice size that he brings to the table as a quarterback. And then along with that, he's a plus athlete and a rusher. Now, I won't say that he's a burner or that he's dynamic with the ball in his hands, but he is a plus athlete, and he does have a little bit of power to his game. He uses his frame to his advantage, 6'4", 236, where he's not afraid to lower the shoulder, run somebody over if need be, and he certainly has the power to deliver that punch. Along with that size and strength as well leads to a big arm. When you really see him grip it and rip it, especially down the field, it is an impressive arm, and there's not a whole lot of limitations on it. Now, it's not super flexible. It's not like Tyler Shuck or something like that where he's going to throw sidearm or he's going to throw super off platform all the time. He's very much a kind of traditional passer in that way, where he needs a clean platform. But overall, I think that his upper body mechanics are really clean and quick, and he gets the ball out. And, I think that is a good aspect of his game, where he does have very clean and quick upper body mechanics that certainly help him out in terms of, getting the ball out fast. And, there's other quarterbacks in this class like Kyle McCord that had a little bit of a longer release, and you could certainly say Howard was the better pick because that's going to lead to less fumbles at the National Football League level and gives him that instantaneous release that you want from your starting QB. Then another thing that I really like about Howard's profile here is some of the touch that he shows on some of his passes, particularly when he's throwing to the intermediate and deep parts of the field. Howard's deep ball, when he throws it correctly and it's not a wobbler or it's not inaccurate, it's one of the most beautiful deep balls in this entire class. And, there's a lot of Steelers fans out there posting clips of some of the most impressive throws that he had at Ohio State last year. And they're right. He did have some very impressive throws. And you just want to see those a little bit more consistently. We saw some of these more touch passes, these really good throws down the field closer to the end of the season than we saw in the beginning and middle portions of the season. But certainly on his film, and certainly a possibility when he heads into the league. He's also pretty good on his first read. He's decisive. He gets to the top of his drop, and he's making a decisive decision. He's not, middling, or he's not making muddy decisions. He's definitely not afraid to throw the ball down the field either. So on the first read, he's pretty darn good. Then I really love his football and leadership, football character and leadership. I mean, this guy was a national championship quarterback for a reason. Now, yes, that roster from Ohio State was awesome. But this is somebody that is still the quarterback of a team that won the national championship, and he was the leader of that locker room, according to the people that were present there in Columbus last year. So he's going to bring that to the table. He's going to fit into whatever role the Steelers ask of him. And then he played his best football towards the end of the season in the playoffs. When the lights were brightest, when the stage was the largest, he played his best football during that stretch run during the college football playoffs. And he had a fantastic national championship game as well, especially as a rusher. So the fact that he got better as the season went on shows growth, and it also shows an ability to not be afraid of those big moments, which is something that you want from somebody in a potential future franchise quarterback. Now, coming up here, I'm going to let you guys know the cons. All right, we're gonna keep it honest, and we're gonna keep it straight with you guys on this channel, because that's what we do. We're going to tell you the truth on these prospects. So there are some cons that led to him going in round 6 that we're going to discuss here in just one moment. But if Will Howard plays, he's going to be throwing to one DK Metcalf, who will be wearing the number 4 this year. And if you guys want to get your very own DK Metcalf number 4 Steelers jersey in your closet today, you can go chatsports.com/DK. And if you use that link, Fanatics will actually send us part of the proceeds. So if you want to help out the channel and you're already planning on getting a DK Metcalf jersey, now's your chance to go get it today and help out the channel a little bit. Go to chatsports.com/DK. Link to that's in the comments and description of today's show if you want to help out the show. So now Howard's negatives and his cons start with his inconsistent accuracy. Now, you might be saying at home, but Jack, he had a 73+% completion percentage. Well, he also left about 7% of those throws that should have been caught, away with spray throws to all levels of the field. I'm not even joking that, the play calling and the talent and the protection around Will Howard was so good last year. Like, if it was like a legit, maybe like number 1 overall pick level quarterback, it might have been an 80% completion percentage. It was that good of a surrounding cast. And, there's definitely spray throws all over the place to short, intermediate, and deep levels of the field. I also think, what kind of contributes to this is smaller hands. And this is something that's a concern playing in the AFC North, because you're going to be playing in the cold. You're going to be playing in conditions, just 9-inch hands. And, that's going to, you can see on film that sometimes when he really grips it and rips it, it's fantastic velocity. It's a great spiral. But there's other times where you can see that, he doesn't get the full grip of the football, and it's a bit of a wobbler. And, that comes up more than you want to see it. So especially playing in the AFC North, the smaller hands is something to keep in mind with Will Howard's profile. He also plays with a narrow base, which definitely contributes to inconsistent accuracy. The best quarterbacks in the world, they keep that good base, whereas Howard kind of gets to the top of his drop. He brings his feet really close together, and then he takes his stride, where it's just a lot of it's kind of unnecessary movement, and that extra movement can lead to some inaccuracies when you're throwing the ball down the field. So accuracy is certainly something that's going to need to improve if he's going to get better. At the combine, he was actually getting booed because there were so many inaccurate passes when he was throwing in shorts. All right, so that's something that's going to have to get a lot better for Will Howard once he enters the league if he wants to be a starter. Then another thing that needs to get better when he gets into the league if he wants to be a starting quarterback is the secondary read processing. I think he's pretty good on his first read, but there was a lot of one read to check down or one read to run quarterbacking. Now, sometimes he would have a read where he had 2 go balls down the sideline where he was reading where the safeties were shifting, and he could go from 1 to 2 in that way. But in terms of a full field progression read, there wasn't a whole lot of that in the Ohio State offense last year to my eye. And then another thing here is that when he was kept clean, which was most of the time because of that really good Ohio State offensive line, they had multiple first-rounders on that offensive line this year. He's pretty darn good. But when, it wasn't as clean and, and the pressure did get to him, the numbers drop down significantly, especially as a passer, all right? So things really need to be in rhythm and clean for Will Howard to have success, which is a very backup-y trait. The best quarterbacks in the world can handle pressure and still have success as a passer. Will Howard certainly needs to do that better in the league. He's also not a dynamic rusher of the football. He's more of a straight-line athlete where he's not going to really have a ton of wiggle, and he's not going to, really be a burner. He's more of like a 4-7 type of runner as opposed to like a 4-4 or 4-5 guy like a Justin Fields or Jalen Milroe or Lamar Jackson. It's still a plus athleticism, but it's more straight-line athleticism. Reminds me a lot of Ryan Tannehill as a rusher. And then he's also very conservative on third down. There was a lot of times last year where he would throw a check down after his first read on third down, where there was an opportunity to potentially get a first down on a secondary read. Now, maybe Ohio State was telling him, hey, Will, we're better than everybody on both sides of the football. We don't want you to throw it into super tight windows and force interceptions, stuff like that. That's absolutely possible, but I'm just saying keep a note on his film. He did consciously check it down in those types of situations, in my opinion, too much. And then the final thing here, and we alluded to it earlier, he had an elite supporting cast. And usually, when you get like a Mac Jones playing against or playing with an elite Alabama type of supporting cast, he looks like the best quarterback prospect in the entire class. And then he gets taken top 15. And then when he gets to the league, when it's a more even playing field, it doesn't look nearly as good. And Will Howard, honestly, with the kind of supporting cast that he had around him, it should have looked better than it did, in my opinion. With all the accuracy concerns, the pressure management stuff, I feel like a more pro-ready quarterback would have had even more success than Howard did in the Ohio State offense last year. Kind of to sum it up here, this is what I put in my Twitter post breaking down my scouting report on Will Howard. I think Howard's leadership, size, big arm, and touch passing, plus a plus rushing ability, are all really good traits that make this more than worth a 6th-round selection, but he will need to pair those traits with more consistent accuracy, mental processing, and pressure management if he's going to reach his potential. So my grade on him was an early day 3 grade, and so to get him late day 3 in round 6 was, in my opinion, an absolute steal. But in terms of pro comps for Will Howard, another Will here, a less talented Will Levis, not really as rotational as Will is. And, but I think when you look at these two guys on film, in terms of the size, in terms of the accuracy issues, sometimes, spraying throws on film, I think that, Will Howard's arm is not nearly as talented as Will Levis, but I see a lot of Levis in his game. A mid-level comp is Blake Bortles, where, bigger quarterback with a good arm, but, kind of stiff and, decent athlete, but, overall pretty stiff thrower of the football that, had some accuracy concerns, but hey, he went to an AFC Championship game as a starting quarterback in the National Football League, but really settled in more as a backup. That's certainly something that could happen with Will Howard as kind of a mid-level comp, but if everything works out well, if he develops, the tools that he has, he could be Derek Carr. Now, he might be sitting at home saying, Jack, that's a terrible comparison. Derek Carr sucks. But it's like, we're talking about a 6th-round pick here, guys. For him to have a chance to become a legitimate starting quarterback like Derek Carr in this league, I think is something that is very good for a 6th-round selection, which makes him a great day 3 dart throw, all right? Derek Carr's been a bona fide franchise quarterback in this league for many seasons. And by the way, if the Steelers traded for him, let's say if the Aaron Rodgers situation kind of fizzles out and you get Derek Carr, I think he's a fantastic fit for the offense that Arthur Smith wants to run with the play action style, kind of upright thrower with good arm, good touch thrower down the field. Very similar profile here, in my opinion, between Will Howard and Derek Carr. So if he can hit and if he can develop the mental processing and the accuracy and get closer to Carr and some of those nuances of the game, I think that he could be a potential mid-level starting quarterback, but for me, that's kind of the ceiling for Will Howard. And no, he's not going to be Big Ben, or at least I don't think. I don't think he's going to be Josh Allen. Just because these guys are the same size does not mean they're the same quarterback, guys, all right? Like, Big Ben Roethlisberger and Josh Allen are future Hall of Fame quarterbacks. And if you're going into Will Howard's career here expecting him to be a Hall of Fame quarterback, you are setting yourself and you're setting Will up for success, all right? So I think it's a more than generous and fair thing to say that Will Howard has some starter-level traits, but it's also more than fair to say expecting him to be a Hall of Fame-level quarterback, an MVP-level quarterback as a 6th-round pick is probably a little bit crazy, guys, all right? So I think the reality of the situation is Will's going to have an opportunity to work behind, the other quarterbacks in this room for at least a season, maybe 2 seasons, but the Steelers will likely draft their future franchise quarterback in the next 2 years of the NFL draft. Next year, especially because the draft is in Pittsburgh, drafting a quarterback would be a big deal, and if they don't draft one next year, maybe they draft one in 2027, all right? So I think that's probably the reality of the situation, but who knows, man? After a year or two learning from, a certain Hall of Fame quarterback, cough, cough, Aaron Rodgers, and his mentor, maybe he can develop more accuracy. Maybe he can develop a little bit more in the mental processing department, right? And if those things happen, I think he could be a pretty decent NFL starting quarterback that would, by the way, be an excellent fit for the Steelers offense. But I do think because he's a 6th-round pick, a lot of stuff needs to go right for him to be named the franchise quarterback of this football team. So listen, man, day 3 dart throw, very excited to see how Will Howard develops. Am I expecting Josh Allen or Big Ben production? Hell no. So let me know down there in the comments section. Grade the pick of Will Howard in round 6. Give me an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F. Let me know what you guys think. For me, I think it's like a B+, A-. Guy with NFL starter traits you're getting in round 6. You hope can develop behind a really good Hall of Fame level quarterback in Aaron Rodgers and also a longtime veteran in Mason Rudolph. I mean, hey, it's worth the shot as far as I'm concerned. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for making it to the end of today's program. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already for more in-depth and free Steelers coverage on this channel every single day. And until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, our cuts for the day are officially over. And Coop, I think my evaluation is more than fair. In fact, I think I'm generous with my evaluation of Will Howard because he goes to round 6, most of the league views this guy as a backup quarterback. And I'm acknowledging that he has some traits here where, at best case scenario, he could be a mid-level starter.
I think he's a backup, to be honest. He could be a mid-level starter if it all pans out. But there's a reason.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's a reason he was taken in the 6th round. And for the Steelers to, have a quarterback that they can develop under their wing for a couple of seasons, probably with Aaron Rodgers at the helm, I mean, there's not many better QBs ever to learn from than Aaron Rodgers.
Just ask Jordan Love. I mean, Jordan Love and Zach Wilson, by the way, have praised Aaron Rodgers for the way that he has mentored these types of quarterbacks. So who knows what can happen? I'm excited to see what Will can do. It seems like he's a great kid.
Yep.
Like I said in my profile there, my scouting report, high football character, played his best football when the lights are brightest. Like, if all things go well, Derek Carr's a pretty decent quarterback, guys.
No doubt about it.
People shit on Derek Carr, and he is very limited. But, you know, if you're getting Derek Carr as a 6th-round pick, that's pretty darn good
You're
pick.
happy.
All right, so I think it's more than likely he's going to end up being a backup. That's probably just the reality of the situation. But the fact that you're getting somebody with legit starter upside in round 6, I think is a pretty darn good pick. But please, 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 guys, let's stop with the Josh Allen and stop with the Big Ben Roethlisberger comps just because they're the same size. They're not the same.
Before we get out of here, we just need to LOL at the Browns once again. Not only is Deontay Johnson visiting, they are signing him.
Yes, they are. Deontay Johnson signing with the Cleveland Browns. You know, Deontay, I think, you know, locker room, very, very questionable. All right, that's why the Steelers got rid of him. He's kind of a me guy, is what I've heard.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, you add him to that group alongside Jerry Jeudy, kind of similar types of receivers, honestly, kind of route runner types.
I almost feel bad for Browns fans, but I don't.
But I don't. They just keep digging their grave. We're not going to stop them, by the way. So that'll be it for today's show, guys. Thank you to everybody that's still watching. Over 350 people still watching. All right, so that's a credit to you guys. Thank you so much for sticking with us here. Of course, if Rodgers signs tonight, we'll be back on live. If not, we're going to have a video for you guys tomorrow morning. So until then, guys, appreciate you. And here we go, Steelers.
Peace.